Welcome to Raising OKC Kids, Conversations with Metro Family in Oklahoma City. I'm Erin Page, and today we are talking about therapeutic foster care with our special guests, Dr. Deb Shropsire, Director of Child Welfare Services of the Oklahoma Department of Human Services, and Sharon Guilbeaux, Therapeutic Foster Parent. Welcome to you both, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
Sharon,
thank you.
I would love to start with you, Sharon, to hear more about your journey as a foster mom. What inspired you to become a foster parent?
Well, I've been in the school system for 20 years with children with special needs, and I've seen that. I've seen the need was there, and I always kind of wanted to do it, but I never just took the plunge and done it. And so one day I came home and I asked my husband, hey, how do you feel about just opening our home for just one kid, just doing one kid? And he was like, well, it's really not going to be any different because you're usually bringing someone in anyway. So he was like, sure, go ahead. And at that point, I didn't realize just how much the need was for it. I knew it was there, but until you actually step into it, the need is so much greater than what I even realized that it was. And so that's how we started. And and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did start. And I'm glad that we did do it because it's been a big blessing to us, and I never even realized it. When I was throwing it around and tossing the ideal around, I didn't really even realize the blessing that I would get out of doing it. So, but we enjoy it. We enjoy taking the kids and helping them and doing what we can for them.
And you do a lot, Sharon, and I know as much as you are blessed by those relationships, the kids and the families that you have worked with are incredibly blessed by you as well. So Dr. Deb, in the years since you have worked for the Oklahoma Department of Human Services, what have been some of the biggest or most exciting areas of growth you've witnessed within the foster care system itself, or when it comes to community understanding?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And so I've been working kind of within the child welfare system for really around 7 years now, but very closely alongside the child welfare system for more than 20 years. And I can tell you one of the things that I've seen is within this sort of the system itself, within the Department of Human Services and even the relationships with courts and other partners that are involved in the child welfare system, it has been a really strong desire to make it better, to just make it better no matter what. And no matter who we had to partner with, no matter what it was going to take. And so there's a great deal of resilience and of intention to make sure that Oklahoma families and kids are being well served. And that's a big deal. It's a good thing because it makes you sort of realize, there's really not going to be problems that you face that you can't solve if you have kind of that attitude as a starting place. As far as it relates to community partnerships, I can remember, and it hasn't been that long ago, I can remember the days when what happened in child welfare was very siloed and community folks often didn't know very much about foster care other than the handful of people who did serve as foster parents. But if you talk to a church or to a business or something like that about foster care, most of what they knew was on the news. It wasn't from any kind of direct interaction with the child welfare system. And maybe about 10 or 11 years ago, both DHS's willingness to look to the community for solutions, as well as I think rising community awareness around foster care, those two things kind of came together. And over the last 8 or 10 years, we've really seen a lot of partnerships blossom, both in terms of just simply recruiting more foster homes. Our state over the last 6 or 7 years has really outperformed most other states in the country in terms of recruiting and supporting foster homes, but also in terms of, like I said, a million other kinds of partnerships across the state that bring resources into the system, that bring opportunities for the kids we serve, for the families we serve. even opportunities for support for our staff as we're trying to do a really hard job. And so really I feel like we're at a really a great moment in time in the history of sort of Oklahoma child welfare, where the state and the community are working very closely together to achieve the best outcomes for families. We're now positioned actually in a place where we can kind of think about not just only how to take care of kiddos that are in foster care, which we're going to talk a lot about today, but also how to think about supporting families even before foster care is on the table. And we would not be able to be talking about that 5 or 10 years ago if it weren't for some of the community partnerships that we have been able to see grow over this past 5 or 10 years.
Absolutely. There's really been a big shift in the last 8 to 10 years that even just as an outsider watching, I have been able to be witness to. And it's people like you, Dr. Deb, and people like you, Sharon, that have worked so hard together as a team. I think, recognizing those child welfare specialists and the hard work that they do, providing additional support for them and helping tell their stories, helping people understand what it is that they do every day, in addition to the hard work that the foster parents have. So it's been one of the highlights of my career to get to watch this shift and change happen and help tell some of the really cool, really positive stories. Dr. W and I have been working together for a number of years as Metro Family has shared those series on foster care. And one thing that we always seem to land on is the myths and the misinformation that surround foster care and the foster care system. We could talk about this at length, I know, but I'd like to hear from each of you, maybe the top myth or stereotype that relates to foster care that you have encountered that you can correct for us today. Sharon, will you start?
Yeah, I would say, when you one of the big stereotypes is, a lot of people will stereotype you as, you're doing it for the money. You're doing it to make your living, or, and that is something that I feel like deters people from stepping up to do it, because you don't want to be put in that category of, I'm taking care of these kids so I can make a living, because that's not the case. And I find it really sad, because those people that are the ones that put that on are the ones that really ought to step up and help these kids, because these kids need help. And it's not about money. It's about changing a life, changing an innocent life. And so that stereotype has always been one that's kind of bugged me. And it probably even did deter me from doing it for several years, because I didn't want to be put in that classification. As much as I wanted to help kids, I never wanted that to be said. Now I just don't care. If somebody wants to say that, that's okay, because I know the truth and it doesn't matter. Or, that the kids have, that any kid in custody has some form of mental illness and you can't do anything for them. And that's not true either. These kids, when they do come into custody, they have a lot, of trauma and a lot that they have to work through, and it takes being there for them and teaching them and helping them and building trust with them and stuff. And I have found that most all of them are okay. They're okay once you get them past that point and they learn to trust and love and open up again. They're okay. So that's just two stereotypes that's always kind of bothered me with the that kind of get through out to you. But if any of those people that feel that way, those are the ones that really need to step up and say, hey, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to change, I'm going to change this system if that's how I feel about it. But
those are really important stereotypes to address, Sharon. I'm glad you talked about both of those. Dr. Deb, what would you add?
Yeah, I would add one, and then Sharon, I would love your perspective on how you handled this. I think one of the things I commonly hear is, well, I would get too attached. Like if I was to get into foster care and take a child into my home, I would just get too attached. And then what if they went back to their original family or eventually went off to adoption or something like that, I wouldn't want to deal with the attachment. And what I would always say to people who said that to me is, I want you to be attached because that's what that child needs, is that relationship. Sharon, I heard you talking about that, sort of the importance of that relationship. And so we actually need people to be willing to expose themselves to a relationship, recognizing that for many children there might be a transient nature to that. But Sharon, I would love to know kind of how you have dealt with that attachment side, like in a practical way, because I can speak it as somebody who's in the foster care system, but I haven't been a foster parent. And so you've got a different perspective on what that attachment side looks like.
Yeah, it is tough. When you take a kid in your home and you've had them for a year or over a year, it's hard to say those goodbyes. It really is. But when you know that is the best thing for that child, that they are going with their siblings or they're going home, and that's the ultimate goal. Then it makes it a little easier, to let go. But me, I stay in contact with all my kids. That is, they're a part of my family. Once they come, they don't get shed of me very easily because I talk to all of them. I still talk to all of them that I've had or keep in contact with them. And so that helps too. Just because you have to let them go, that isn't goodbye. You can still be a part of their life. And in most cases, wherever they go, those people want you to be a part of their life also. You help mold that child and bring it back to where it needed to be. And that's, so you hold a special place in their heart. And most people, where the kids go to for their forever homes, they want you to be, a part of that also. And so it's really not goodbye. You always, have the opportunity to still be a part of their life,
I like to talk to people who are thinking about fostering from a standpoint of, we really are asking people to step in and almost create an extended family for whether it's kiddos, or sometimes it's kiddos and their biological parents, or maybe it's eventually an adoptive family. I mean, everybody needs extra relatives around who will help you out whenever you're needing a break, or who mentor your kids. I have lots of people in my life, some of whom I'm related to and some that I'm not related to. I've just picked and brought into my life to help us as a family. Everybody needs that. And often these children and often their parents do not have extended family or social networks that can provide them that kind of support. And so under the best case scenario, some of the coolest situations I've ever encountered have been where foster families and the kiddos and the permanent families really just became kind of an extended family with each other. And that's how they proceeded on long past the child welfare case.
Yeah.
That's such an important stereotype or myth to address. Thank you both for giving us those visualizations. That's so beautiful. And you're so right. As many foster parents as I have had the privilege of talking to, that's something that they all mention, that there are still kids that have been in their home that they're still connected with, that they, go celebrate the birthday with the child and their family, their forever family, that they go to graduations, that there are oftentimes still those opportunities to maintain those relationships, which is incredibly beautiful to get to have the privilege of being in that child's life really for their entire life. So thank you guys for talking about that. That's so important to know. And today we really want to talk about a special division of foster care. Dr. Deb, will you explain for us what therapeutic foster care is and how it differs from traditional foster care?
Yeah, absolutely. So we recognize that kiddos who are in our system need different kinds of things. Not all children who enter care need exactly the same. Some kiddos have maybe average sort of healthcare, educational needs, and sort of just need a family who can kind of incorporate them and take care of them. But other kiddos may need pretty significant support, especially around their behavioral health or their development. And so we recognize that we need to recruit and support and train foster parents who are equipped to deal with kiddos who do have some of those extra needs. And so therapeutic foster care is really a mechanism by which child welfare, by Department of Human Services, partners with several agencies, private agencies, that help us recruit and support foster families who are going to become therapeutic foster families. And the agency, in supporting them, those families get additional training specifically on trauma, on behavioral health, on how to serve that child from a mental health perspective. And so there's some, in a sense, almost professional learning that those foster families go through to understand better how to meet the needs of those kiddos. And then the agency itself actually provides a great deal of support to those families, including having a counselor available or counselors that are available to meet the mental health needs of that child and of that family, crisis support, and some of those extra kinds of things that if you have a child in your home that has kind of a heavier dose of need or trauma or behavioral health challenges, you need extra supports to be able to address that. The agencies may also help with navigating school challenges or other kinds of challenges, because some of these kiddos are going to need help with an educational plan or some other kinds of assistance to figure out how to kind of bring out the best for them. And so those agencies, combined with the Department of Human Services, really work hard to support families in that. So therapeutic foster care is really foster care plus extra help around understanding the behavioral health needs of kids, the skills to meet those behavioral health needs, and the supports, including therapy supports and other kinds of supports from an agency that's going to help a family be successful with a child or a youth that has additional behavioral health needs.
Thank you, Dr. Deb, for explaining that. I think one of the other myths or fears maybe that potential foster parents have is feeling like they're going to sign up to be a foster parent, they're going to go through the training, and then they're going to be in this all by themselves. And that could not be farther from the truth. The support systems, really the team that comes around foster parents, and even more so therapeutic foster parents, is really impressive and really designed to help foster parents every step of the way. Sharon, will you tell us from your perspective as a foster parent, what are the differences between being a therapeutic foster parent and traditional foster parent, and what kind of supports do you receive as a therapeutic foster parent?
Yeah, to me, the difference is how they handle trauma. Even as us as adults, I may handle trauma differently than you handle trauma, and that's where these kids get, from traditional to therapeutic. The kids that have a harder time dealing with the trauma that they have been through, that's usually where they get the more care at, and you do have to give more care, and they can tend to be a little bit more challenging, but they can learn, and they're okay. I have found that they're okay. A lot of people are afraid to step into it, with the kids that do have more problems. But I have realized that once they learn to trust and open up, and once you can kind of let them know that it's going to be okay, and you're there for the long haul with them, you will start seeing a different child in the kids. You will start seeing the different behaviors. And then, of course, pairing up with a good agency is always good, because, I have people on call. We have, the kids have counselors, and I have people on call. If I need someone, it wouldn't matter if it was at midnight. I could make that phone call, and they would come to the house if we was having any kind of an issue. Or, sometimes if I just need, some reassurance saying it's okay. Yeah. You're doing okay, because there's no handbook given out to you to say, this is what you do in this situation, or this is what you do in that situation. Some of it is just trial and error as you go. And so, but you always have them there, from our agency. Like I said, I can pick up my phone at any point in time, and somebody will be there to answer and come to us if we need them, and the same I have found true with DHS. If we've had any issues, I can pick up my phone and talk to caseworkers or whoever it may be at any point in time. You're not alone in it. You've got all kinds of people there willing to help, because in the long run, everybody wants the same thing, and that's for this child to be successful, and to be able to, maintain, and be able to go out into the world and grow up and be a productive citizen. That's what we all want for the child. And so you have a whole team behind you. You're not alone at all.
Thank you, Sharon. I think it's just so important to know and to consider, especially for people who may be feeling that tug to learn more about being a therapeutic foster parent. Dr. Deb, how many therapeutic foster homes do we have in Oklahoma? How many more do we need to meet the needs of kiddos who need this kind of home? And how is DHS currently recruiting more foster families to ensure more kids get to enjoy this kind of home environment?
So currently what we have is about 120 or 125 children who are placed in therapeutic foster care. But we need more, and we know that because we have other children who've been identified as needing that level of care, who are on a waiting list and literally just waiting for homes to open up. Well, I actually want to try to flip that and make it so that there are homes that are open and waiting for children instead of children who are waiting for homes. I would say that we think that we will need at least another couple of hundred therapeutic foster homes, but 100 homes would really make the difference in kind of night and day. 100 homes would empty that list. It would give us flexibility to match kids better with families so that we can really say, hey, where is this child or youth from? How can we keep them close to their community or close to their school, or those kinds of things. And so even just 100 homes would make quite a lot of difference in impacting our need. Right now, we're doing a number of different things. We've been doing quite a lot of work to try to inform the public of therapeutic foster care, kind of what the differences are there. I've been working closely with the agencies that help us recruit those foster families, and even reaching out to regular foster families, traditional foster families, to say, hey, would you be interested in stepping into therapeutic foster care? You already know how to do the foster parent thing. Could we provide potentially extra training and some things like that, and move you into a space where you're maybe taking on a kiddo that has some different challenges than what you've taken care of before. So all of those are mechanisms that we're undertaking right now to try to grow the number of therapeutic foster homes that we have.
Sharon, before you began your journey as a foster parent, were there things you were nervous about before you became a therapeutic foster parent? And then I know you've talked about, this being a blessing for you. What are some of the biggest blessings that you have experienced as a therapeutic foster parent?
I was very nervous. I was scared. There was a part of me that thought, can I do this? Am I qualified to be able to take this child and help it? And I was scared. There was a part of me that was scared. And, but once I stepped into it and I started doing it, I realized that, a lot of things just, when you give them understanding and you give them love and you have the compassion, and a lot of times they just need to know they're at a safe place and that nobody's walking out on them, nobody's leaving them. And when you do all that and you see this child that couldn't maintain a placement, couldn't maintain anything, and you start watching this child go from a child that people, thought had mental illness, and you see that, 6 months down the road, this kid's okay. This kid is okay. And that right there is rewarding in itself. You can't, the blessing of watching that child do that, or being able to do something for a kid that they've never been able to have before, and their appreciation and their thankfulness is, they're so happy, things that we take for granted with our kids that we've, our kids have just had, and these kids haven't, and so it's little things, just little things that you wouldn't have even thought about, with your own children, because that's just being a parent. That's what you do. these kids are so appreciative. And as you go through time with them and you do these things, and they trust and they learn to love and they learn to, you know, be able to make friends and have friends and do things that their anger leaves and they're happy. And you see a upset little kid that couldn't laugh start laughing and playing. That right there, that's rewarding. You can't put no dollar sign on that or anything on that. That's rewarding all in itself, is to be able to take a child and get them through one of the toughest times. You know, that this kid didn't ask for this. This isn't something that, you know, this was all brought on to an innocent child that had no control over this whole situation. And when you can take that child and you know, be there for it and watch it grow and be able to grow and learn, and that's rewarding. That's the biggest thing.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sharon. Thanks for your honesty about those challenges, and then how those challenges are worth it. They're worth it for the kids especially, but they're worth it for the foster family too. Dr. Deb, what do you think are some of the biggest fears or concerns that keep people from becoming therapeutic foster families? You know, one of the things I know we have talked a lot about is that hesitancy about building those relationships with biological parents when that's possible. That can be kind of a fear for people who are considering foster care.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. There are several things I think that that cause people to not step into this, and certainly the uncertainty of what's it going to be like to work with DHS, what's it going to be like to have social workers around my home, or have to answer all these questions on all these applications we have to fill out. What's it going to be like to interact, as you said, with a biological family, or siblings, or all the other relationships that this child may have. Those are definitely all things that people kind of worry about, and they wonder about. What I would say to that is that you do, and I think you've heard that, you do have a lot of support all along the way. Like we don't just kind of throw people in the deep end and say, I hope you can swim. There's a whole lot of support, everything from practical support of how to get through the process of becoming the foster parent, the actual like nuts and bolts, paperwork and training, all the way through how do we support you through some of that relationship building, whether it's with the child or whether it's with their family or whether it's with their future family. Some of the children who are in therapeutic foster care may have already had the experience of their parents' rights being terminated, and they're actually moving in the direction of a future family. And that can also be nerve-wracking too, of trying to sort of be a part of that kind of formation of that. And so I think that's definitely something people are afraid of, but you're not alone in doing it, and it is very rewarding to watch that child be heal and be healthy, and then be able to step into whatever those relationships are going to look like in the future. I think honestly, one of the other things that people struggle with sometimes is just figuring out how it'll kind of work out for them in terms of a schedule. I mean, we're all busy. You ask anybody how they're doing, and they'll say they're busy. And maybe that's been a little less so maybe over the past year, because we've all kind of been stuck at home a lot more. But in general, you know, we fill up our days with a whole lot of activities. And so I think sometimes people are afraid they won't have time, or they don't know how to fit. They've already got too much to do. And what I would say to that is, you make time for what's important. And that a lot of times these kiddos it's not that any child that is in your home, or that's your own child, or you're stepping into foster care, is going to take time. But the other side of that is we also incorporate our children into our lives. And so it's not stepping away from one life and creating a whole different one to become a foster family. It is really trying to figure out like how to mesh a new thing into your existing life. But people do make time for what is most important to them. And so we're certainly interested in families that would really stop and think about taking a step towards kind of opening their schedule, opening their heart, opening their time and their resources to help somebody else who's in need.
That's such a good point, Dr. Deb. one of the things that I've talked with a lot of folks at DHS, at agencies, other foster families over the years is that even if you are a person who's not called to be a foster family specifically, we all have this shared responsibility as a community of supporting foster families, biological families, DHS, or the agencies that are located in our communities. Dr. Deb, what are some actionable ways that families can help?
Yeah, I love that question, because I will tell you, there is a rare person out there who never heard of foster care, then they heard of it and they said, oh, I'll just become a foster parent or a therapeutic foster parent. But that's not most people's story. Most people's story is maybe they heard about it, or maybe they had a neighbor who was fostering, or maybe they had some kind of experience around them that they learned a little bit, and then they learned a little more, and they learned a little more, and it took time. And along the way, people have the opportunity to not only learn, to open their ears and their mind to what's going on kind of in our state, but also to look around in their community, whether it's in their church, whether it's in their neighborhood, whether it's in the school system their kids go to, and to say, hey, in these community spaces I'm in, there are probably foster parents already that are already operating, right? And so where are there people around me that if I just opened my eyes, I'd see, oh, there's a family who's fostering. How can I serve them? So that's the first place I tell people to go, is look around and see how you can serve those folks. I mean, there's nothing better than somebody who'll bring a home cooked meal on a day when there's been court, or it's been a bad day at school, or a bad day with with whatever's going on, and somebody shows up on your front door with food, and you're not having to worry about supper. Or somebody in your life who will serve as an alternative caregiver, who will say, hey, the kiddos can come over to my house for a day every so often. Or a respite caregiver, where you can take care of somebody's foster kiddos for a weekend, or give them a break once in a while. That actually really supports people who like Sharon, who stepped into fostering, kind of stepped in the deep end with us, to be able to have those supports, those respite supports, or people in her community that are stepping in and serving, is what every single foster family needs. And it's a great place for people who are kind of curious. They're not sure they're called to be all the way into fostering, but they want to take a step. And it's an incredible support to those families who have taken that on.
Those are some great ideas. And I think a lot of times being an alternate caregiver or respite care can help those families who think maybe this is something they want to do. That can kind of give you a taste of it. That can kind of help you test the waters a little bit to see some of those logistical things you were talking about, Dr. Deb. How am I going to make this work with my family's schedule? That gives you kind of a really good look at that, and helps you support a foster family at the same time. Sharon, what would you add? What have been some of the most beneficial ways others have helped support your family?
Well, one is by being an alternative caregiver. If we had to do something, run someplace, I've had people that would be like, hey, let me take them. I'll keep them, and that is a big help sometimes, because sometimes when unforeseen circumstances happen and you got to go do something, it's nice to know that you've got somebody there that will step up and say, hey, let me do that, and so that is a big thing. And like you said, what a great way to get to know that some of these children, and to decide if somebody wants to do it. I can't imagine anybody not wanting to do it after I started doing it, and I tossed it around. My kids was grown, and I tossed it around of, do I really want to do this, and the whole time and this and that. But it's like you said, you just incorporate them into your life, and wherever we go, they go. If we go on family vacations with my kids and my grandbabies, they all go too, they become a part. And then understanding and kindness, sometimes when you have one that acts out, or, it's nice to have people that's kind of in your circle that understands and that's not judgmental about it, or that. I think that's real important too,
Those are such.
That's a really good point you made, Sharon. That language of about judgment. I will say that is one of the things that sometimes foster parents talk about is even sometimes from their own family, depending on how much their family was interested in their extended family may have opinions about them fostering, or in their community. I hear foster families talk about sometimes, um, you know, the way they may be treated at the grocery store or other kinds of things, especially if a kiddo is having a hard day. uh, Really, as neighbors, every single one of us, when we see a family who's having a hard time, and especially if we happen to know that's a foster family, everything that we can do to say, uh, I'll help you, I'm not going to judge you, what can I do? That's a role for every single person in Oklahoma, not just those people who say someday maybe I would step into fostering. So I would definitely love to see folks who are listening to this really think about how they can directly support foster families, but also even from a mindset standpoint. How do we just be kind towards each other?
That is so important. I'm so glad you both spoke about that. And I will extend that challenge to all of our listeners to really think about how you can get in that mindset and some actionable ways that you can find those foster families around you and lend a helping hand in whatever way makes the most sense for you. Thank you both so much for joining me today and for all the impactful, important work you guys are doing in our communities on behalf of kids and families. For our listeners, you can learn more about therapeutic foster care and becoming a therapeutic foster parent at beaneighbor.org. Thanks everyone for listening. Join us next time on Raising OKC Kids.